Hi there, my name is Jules with Jules Marketing Design. I'm a commercial photographer, and today I'm doing a video on pricing strategy for you photographers out there. Hopefully, my goal of this whole video is to help you walk out of this presentation, so to speak, with a better understanding in terms of your pricing strategy, so that way you can take your business in a better direction for, better profitability into the future. That said, the first aspect to consider about pricing strategy is that money is important. Photography equipment, we all know, is very expensive. Cost of living is expensive, so you need to make money. My dad used to always say that, businesses always go bankrupt in the short term. And what he meant by that is that, you need money now. It doesn't matter if you got a lot of money coming to you in the future, you need money to run your business now. So certainly you got to look at your business as a necessary machine to produce monies now, so you can sustainably continue on in the future. Now, consideration that I like to go by is that I price to win business. Now, that said, I don't price to negotiate, okay? So what I mean by that is that I've given a lot of consideration in terms of my cost per image or my hourly rate before I spoke to the client. So right off the get-go, I'm giving a really good price, so then that way I can win the business. But I'm also giving a price so I'm not going to be wasting my time. If I'm going to be pricing at a point that it's not competitive for me and that I'm probably better off flipping burgers, it's not going to be rewarding to me as a career. So you certainly want to make sure that you're making enough money. So when you quote a client, you want to make sure that you're covering your costs. Keeping in mind also that you're going to have periods where you might be sick, you might be on vacation, you might you'll have no business. It'll be a downtime. Summertime gets slow in my line of work, so you want to be able to have enough money in your projects that helps cover for these periods. So in my case, I charge $100 an hour for my product photography services. Now, that's not to say that I'm making $200,000 a year in terms as a photographer, but the thing is, again, that when there's going to be slower periods, I can at least have some kind of money. Now, $100 an hour, that's only my theoretical shop rate where, when I don't know how to price a job, which I'll be getting into in a little bit more. And for all intents and purposes, some people might find that cheap. Some people might find that very expensive, but that's a starting point that I would recommend. Don't charge something like $30 an hour, because that's the equivalent of working at $15 an hour, which again, you're probably better off working at McDonald's. So that said, I don't provide discounts for my clients, and to me that's fair. That's fair for me, because if I'm also giving a discount to one client, it's not fair to the other guy that I didn't give a discount to. So, when you are honest with your customers with a straightforward pricing strategy, it just keeps your life easier, because that way you don't have to think about the deal that you gave one guy and the precedent for another. If your price is consistent, it makes you a much more straight up business to deal with. Now, to that point, I have minimum orders. When I'm going to be doing a project, I know that, say for example, any kind of photography project, say if I'm going to be doing product shots in studio, I'm going to be spending probably about half an hour at least with a client on the phone, more or less. Then after that, I'm going to probably be spending another 30 minutes with receiving the product, getting additional conversation time. Then after that, to set up the actual shoot, it's going to take another, say, 30, 40 minutes. And then I might also be playing around with the item just to kind of see if there's a better way to shoot it. And then once I shoot the actual product, of course, I've got to edit it. And then after I edit it, then I've got to clean up also the shoot. After I did the shoot, I got to put away all the toys and the equipment and all that stuff. So, with every transaction, there is a minimum amount of time that you're going to be spending with every job. So, a guy comes to me and says, I only have say 2 images to photograph. Well, it's like, well, sorry, dude, I got to charge you a minimum, because it's going to cost me a certain amount of time for that transaction to occur. So I got to recoup my cost. So in such a way, or such a circumstance, I charge a minimum order of $400. And that if you can't really do the $400, I'm sorry, I don't really want the business. I might make a very special exception every so often, but usually it bites me in the tail. I might tell a client something to the effect of, Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll go hourly on the project, but usually ends up being around about 3 or 4 hours, the entire project. So I can't stress enough, have a minimum order. Some guy that just charges, $10 or $15 a shot. It's like, man, you're making less money than a guy who works at McDonald's. So I don't know why you're doing that. So be very sensitive about minimum orders to cover your transaction, because there's a lot of time associated with that. To that point, I charge also, say for example, if I have a job and I don't know how to charge it. Say for example, if a client says to me, oh, I've got like about 20 rings and I want them to look amazing. I don't know what those rings are going to look like. I don't know if they're going to come in all dirty. I don't know if the rings are going to come in all tarnished and scratched, if I'm going to have to clean them up. So in such a situation like that, I don't charge product photography like flat rate. I might charge the guy hourly. In my shop rate's $100 an hour as mentioned. That way it's like, if the guy only wants me to do a little bit of work, then obviously it's very little money for them. But if I have to do a lot of work, then I'm going to be charging a lot more. So a shop rate is very useful to have. It's useful to know. So that way you can kind of just quote that out. If I'm doing graphic design work, then that's my shop rate. If I'm going to be doing photography work, that's my shop rate. If I have to bring in another person, what is the shop rate? So that way, understanding my shop rate allows me to price something very fluidly. So then that way I can recoup the money and the time and the energy that I'm putting into that job. Now, every so often, I'm given jobs which require on-location work. On-location work is one that requires a lot of preparation. For example, at least in Toronto, the traffic is terrible. So I know that for most jobs that I do, I have to bring a lot of lighting equipment in there. So I know I'm going to spend probably an hour packing up, and because I might have a big kit depending on the product photography job, it's going to take me an hour to drive there. It's probably going to take me an hour to set up. It's going to take me 45 minutes to tear down, and then it's going to take me an hour to drive back, and then it's going to take me another 30 minutes to unpack. Okay. That said, before I press click, I've already allocated somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 hours to the job. So if my shop rate is $100 an hour, my minimum, my on-location fee is $500. A guy who comes along and says, oh no, we don't charge for the on-location fee. It's like, okay, so I guess you're working for free. If that's the way you want to run your business, great. But let's take other businesses as their business model. Lawyers and accountants, they don't work for free. I mean, I don't know if you've ever worked with a lawyer or accountant, but basically if they've got to fax anything to you or if they've got to pick up your dossier, they will charge you for it. So I don't understand why a lot of photographers don't charge an hourly rate or some kind of flat rate to recover their cost for doing anything. If you don't charge monies for the services you perform, you're cheapening yourself, you don't respect what you do, and you don't respect your time. So certainly, I do recommend that you have an hourly rate and be very careful of your time. I try not to do anything for free. Certainly there's times where I will provide value, having a conversation with a client, that's might be for free, but certainly if I have to provide a lot of consulting services and so on and so forth, I like to charge for that. So certainly I recommend that people have a clear understanding of the fees associated for on-location work, a minimum shop rate, and like say a minimum order. So that way they can hopefully recover their money and time for their efforts put forth. My name is Jules with Jules Marketing Design. I welcome your comments. Keep them nice. I'm trying to be nice by throwing out this good information to all of you. And certainly my rates might be cheap to some of you, and some of you might find them expensive, but generally I find my rates are actually quite competitive. Most customers that are progressive wish to pay for them. By the way, too, I have actually thrown clients out of my studio that try to lowball me. Every so often you're going to get a client that's going to come in and then they're going to try and renegotiate with you after you've negotiated with them. In such a case, that's not cool. When I have a client like that, I just pretty much abruptly end the business transaction, because you have to appreciate that it's unethical. It's unethical to negotiate a deal after it's being negotiated. So when I provide a quote to a client, I'm very detailed in terms of the information, in terms of the service that I'll provide. Very detailed about the costs that I'm going to be charging. And I don't want the client to be upset with me. So, you know, basically there's a clear understanding in terms of what the costs are going to be. And if the client tries to mess around with that, it's probably best that I explain to the client that I'm not the photographer for them. If they're going to be very cheap with you, you should be very confident to say that, you know what, I'm not the right photographer for you, and be brave about that. That's a big deal, because some clients are very expensive to maintain, because they're going to be jerking around with you, and that's not fair to you. It's not cool, and it makes your life unpleasant, and that's not really worth for anybody. So anyway, again, my name is Jules Marketing Design. Send me a note if you would like to further comment about the pricing strategies, and maybe I may just delete this video and create a new one or a revised version, who knows. So my name is Jules Marketing Design, Toronto Product Photography. Look forward to hearing from you.